I thought that was just simply brilliant in the way that was put together.
There, all of the techniques have what we call word association. Actually, and word association is popular in the learning world as far as trying to teach people how to memorize things or how to remember things better. Our brain associates words with certain things. When I say, if I say apple, the first thing that comes to mind is orange, or vice versa. Those types of things, or red, and so Parker, and I have a tendency to agree with you that it was pure genius to label the techniques, each motion with a certain associated word, or the name of the technique was associated with the motion of the technique, or the attack, whether it be the attack or the defense. That word, i.e. snapping twig, it means that I'm going to step back and I'm going to break an arm, the twigs being the arms. So the body limbs are named. The hair, for example, is called the feathers. So we have a technique called clutching feathers, which is where somebody grabs the hair. So I have to agree with you. It's rather ingenious, and it goes through all 154 self-defense techniques. That holds true. And now some of the Kempoists, Mr. Parker having died in 1990, some of the people that are trying to move forward or claim to be progressing in the system are coming out with new self-defense scenarios and calling them other things, trying to maintain the moniker or the idea of word association within that system.
When was that one moment that you went from when the basically the switch clicked and you saw your art a different way? In other words, you no longer were a child or an adolescent. You went, this is an adult art, and I see it that way.
Actually, it's funny because there was and I remember this moment. It was a very, very clear, very, very distinct moment of clarity. We just finished. I think I was probably a purple belt in the system.
Now, where does purple usually sit in
purple's almost in the middle. It goes white, yellow, orange, purple, blue, green, brown, and black.
Okay.
So I actually probably fairly early on, but I'd already been in some other arts as well.
Mm-hmm.
We just finished a freestyle session and sparring, and this other gal that was in the class, and I was probably 18, 19 years old, and this gal come up to me and she was complimenting me. She said, you didn't look like you wanted to kill me. And my face evidently before that had been such that I was afraid and had this look of fear on my face and this look of survival. And so I had relaxed from that childhood memory of having to fight this older gentleman my first time, and then it sent me into a real thought process about what it was that I was doing and why I was doing it. And so for me, that moment of clarity was probably then when she acknowledged that she felt more at ease freestyling with me, and she enjoyed it more, and she wasn't as afraid that I was going to hurt her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. When you look at your students, what do you expect from them?
Early on, I expected a lot. I realize now, though, that there are processes by which we go through. Growth in the arts is likened to life. As we're children, and then we're adolescents, and then we're young adults, and then we're adults. And so as we move through those stages in the arts, we have to, as a teacher, I have to understand that there are those stages, whether the individual is already an actual adult or whether they're a child. They're going to have those phases. And what I expect from them is no more or less than I would expect than I expected from myself early on, although I've learned to kind of back that off a little bit because not everybody's the same. I expect 110% of their effort and their energy into it, and and their skill and ability reflects that at their specific belt levels.
So, what I assume from this then is that when you were involved in your training rather intensely, going up through the ranks, you were pretty much a dojo rat or a grinder.
Yeah, I had 7 days a week on my mind, and that was for. I'm sorry, I trained 7 days a week for 10 years straight, and then I backed off for about probably another 5 or 6 years after that. I backed off to only about 6 days a week where I was teaching or working out, and then recently have calmed it down in the last few years, back down to about 4 or 5 days a week.
When you visit other schools or see other martial arts, what is it that sets those schools or individuals apart or ahead of the rest? And honestly, what makes for a bad school?
Well, the first thing that's always noticeable in any school, and what sets one school or style apart from another school or style, is ultimately the basics. It all goes back to basics. I can look at, of course anybody can, but you look at one student, even within a school, versus another student, and you can tell which one practices their basics more. I mean, I have the same thing in my own studio, where I have one student has been, let's say that they've been practicing as long as the student standing next to them, but there's a definite difference in their motion. And the difference is one of them works their basics better or more, or they understand the basics more. So what sets one school apart from another is ultimately how much do they really focus on their basics, how much do they understand their basics, because it's like the foundation of a house. If you don't have a good, strong foundation, that house will not stand for very long. And so, one of the things that I grind my people on, and I ground myself on for years and years and years, and still do, I still practice my basics to this day, and that's, you have to have good, solid basics. If anything else, nothing is going to save you in the street except the basics. I don't care what kind of sequence of motion you put together, how elaborate it looks and how elaborate it is. If there aren't solid basics behind it, it's not going to work.
I wish I could. I can't disagree with one thing you've said. I guess this interview is over. We're done. No, when you see these, and I know you pop in and kind of check out some of the other schools and so forth, and I do too. But I have to agree with you on the basics. I honestly have got some people that have shown up at my school, and nice people and all, but their basics really aren't there, and
no,
everything is just rickety from there on out.
Yep. Yeah, we work at my school. We spend the first 15 minutes of every class going through basic footwork, and just covering basics every class.
What's the best advice you could give, somebody who's tuning into this podcast, whether it be a beginner or a veteran? And I'm not going to let you say basics. You got to take the next one after that.
Advice for it depends on what their goal is.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I would say make the journey your goal and enjoy the journey. Don't be so specific in a long-term goal. Long-term goals are for old people, in my opinion. You have to have short-term goals, and you have to enjoy the journey, the road you're traveling to get to those short-term goals. And if you're not enjoying it, if it's not fun, then reevaluate why it is that you're doing it.
You've been around a little bit. I want to hear two things from you. I want to hear about a situation that made you just cringe and leave the room, and I want to hear another one about what's the most inspirational thing you've seen in a martial arts studio.
Oof, cringe and leave the room. Well, when one of my students got their leg collapsed in a freestyle situation, somebody did something that they shouldn't have been doing, and yeah, it was pretty bad. I